Tuesday night, that means it's time for the Get Off My Lawn podcast. So we want to welcome you to episode number 10 tonight. Hopefully this is going to be another great installment. We've got some cool stuff happening here in the near future that we're going to talk about. Who do we have out there in the chat? My beautiful bride was out there first, saying good evening. As most of you know, she holds it down out in the chat while I'm busy running my mouth. So I still need to come up with a cool t-shirt design that says she does the typing, I do the talking. Kingpin is out there and here with us tonight. Patriot in the Dark is out there doing a little bit of shameless self-plugging in the manner of Travis P11. Mystic Guns, I don't think I've seen you out there before, so welcome. That is Snob's Wife? Yes. Mystic Guns, I've seen you a lot, just not by that name. So, howdy. Oh, I see. I missed the comment there. I got you. Jay Brown's out there. Mike's out there. And I know more will come as the notifications go out there. So, real quick here, we will let everybody say hello before we dive into the topic at hand tonight. First and foremost, we had Squibload joining us. So, as always, Squib's at work right now. If you've got time to say hi, we'll let you do so. And if not, we'll come back around later.
Hi.
Hi. All right. There we go. We'll catch up with Squib when he's out of work and on the road home. Next up, we've got Kingpin holding it down from the East Coast.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be on the show tonight. Thanks for the invite. Glad
to have you. Kind of missed you here the last couple of weeks. I know life gets in the way. We understand.
Yeah, I got to be at work at 4. So I figured since I got to be at work at 4, I might as well just stay up late tonight.
My goodness. Okay, well, we'll try to keep you up.
So
try
4
to
in the afternoon, huh? Yeah, you wish.
No kidding. All right. And we've got holding it down from across the state, for now anyway, out in the central part or south central part of Nebraska. We've got Travis P11.
Hey, man, I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much. Check out my YouTube channel, Travis P11. Lots of great content and a lot more on the way. So thanks for the invite, man.
And thanks for being here. And then, it's hard to call you a special guest at this point because you're kind of turning into a regular here, which there's nothing wrong with that. We're always happy to have you. But we've got Mr. Rod with us tonight, too.
Hello. Always happy to be here.
Yeah, always welcome. So we're going to do a couple things, and we'll try to kind of mix everything in as we go here. First off, as most of you are aware, and if you're not aware, it's time you found out. This coming Sunday, December 15th, we are staging an online 2A rally. This is not something that is through the NRA. It's not something through any of the organizations, the lobby groups. So whichever one you're thinking of, to my knowledge, this is 100% grassroots. This is for you and me. This is for the 100 million plus gun owners in the United States. If we all could get together and speak with one voice, that's the day to do it. And if 100 million of us say the same thing, they're going to listen. The thing that we want to say is it's pretty simple. Don't take away our rights. Don't chip away at them. Don't take them completely. Don't do anything but give them back. Shall not be infringed means that you can keep your phone calls or your letters, emails, what have you, short and to the point, and just say, Mr. or Ms. Representative, Senator, Councilman, Councilwoman, whatever you have. If you're contacting city or county or state or national level legislators, we want them all to know that we're not going to keep voting for people that vote to take away our rights. So that's what the rally's about. Keep it simple. Keep it very polite. We're not going to convince anybody by calling any names or screaming any of the typical, shall not be infringed or come and take it or anything like that. That's not the point. The point is just to say, hey, I'm a voter and you represent my district or my town or my whatever the case is. And if you want to keep your job, then you need to do what the people tell you to do. That it's pretty cut and dried, just like that. So that's coming up this Sunday on the 15th of December. If you need to know how to get in touch with your representatives and senators at the national level, then I will post the phone number here in the YouTube chat, if I can get my mouse to work right. There we go. So that number right there, 202-224-3121, is actually the number for the Capitol Hill switchboard. So you just dial that number. The operator will ask you where to direct the call. And if you know the name, then you tell them the name. And if you don't know the name of your elected representatives, then tell them what state you're from. Tell them your zip code. They can look that up and get you to the right people. You're probably going to make 3 calls, 1 to your specific representative and then 2 to your senators. And if you want to do more than that, go ahead, but at least talk to the people that represent you where you live, because you are who votes them into office or votes against them for somebody else that'll do the job that you want them to do better. So that is the number to call the Capitol Hill switchboard. And if you need the phone numbers for your specific state level legislators or county or city, I'm pretty sure a Google search will turn those up for you pretty easy. Patriot has got a great video, and he's put the link out there in the chat. So it talks about the online rally, and it's a really good video. It doesn't take just a couple minutes to watch it. So I highly encourage everybody to go watch that after the podcast is over tonight. Not right now. Wait and go afterwards. Just bookmark that link. So, all right, out there in the chat.
One quick question.
Yeah.
The Capitol switchboard. That's Eastern Standard Time.
I don't think they close, do they?
I don't know. I've never called I've never called that number before.
Well,
so
this is a Sunday rally. I'm 99% sure the switchboard is active 24 hours a day, and you can leave messages any time of day or night, I believe. If that's not right, then somebody please correct me out in the chat.
I'll call it right now and find out, because
Heck
it's
yeah.
10 o'clock Eastern, so any other normal business would be closed. So I'll call it right now and see what happens.
That's right, and it is 10 o'clock in Washington right now, so that'll work. We'll let you tell us what happens when you get back. So, all right, here. So we're going to move over a little bit, and Rod, I didn't have a whole lot of time, I guess, before we started this to ask you questions, and I kind of dropped that ball. So I'll just do that right now. I don't know if you're prepared to give the presentation that you gave at this year's NFOA members meeting. That's Nebraska Firearms Owners Association. Rod is one of the board members there. And I really wanted to make it down to that meeting, but we couldn't do it. I had to work that day. And so I missed I missed all of the presentations. I know there were more than one, and I assume that all of them were excellent. But I really wanted to hear what you had to say. And to my knowledge, nobody got that recorded on video, so I haven't heard it yet. So it'll be the first time for me hearing it, along with probably most everybody that's listening right now. If you want to do the whole thing over real quick, impromptu, that's cool. If you want to hit the high points, whatever you want to do, but I don't know any more really than the rest of us do as far as what it is that you actually presented to the group. And so I'm just going to turn the floor over to you at this point, Rod.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll just kind of a streamlined version of what I gave for the presentation down in Lincoln. I am a past director. I was the director of government affairs and was the lobbyist for the NFOA for about 8 years. I'm still involved. I still consult with the board on strategy. I just joined Trey for a meeting with Senator Brewer a couple of weeks ago to talk about the red flag law or the red flag bill coming up. We all believe that that's going to be coming out of committee right after the session begins in January. So working on strategy there. So I asked a couple of questions when I began the presentation. One, the phrase "freedom isn't free." What do people think of when they hear that? And generally, we think about the military members that have lost their lives defending our freedom, generally in wartime. But there's another meaning to it, and that is that we, as citizens, have a responsibility to participate in the process of retaining our freedom, and that is in the form of engaging our elected representatives. Another thing that I had asked about was, what do you think of when you hear the word lobbyist? And a lot of times people think about the powerful influence that a lot of money has in Washington. They think about lobbyists for some of the larger industries that have a lot of influence, maybe pharmaceutical industry, tobacco, certainly lawyers. I mean, the trial attorneys associations. There's a lot of pretty powerful lobbyist organizations in Washington, D.C. And that's certainly true that is a form of lobbying, but it's very different when you get to the state level. And if we look at Nebraska, who are the more influential lobbying groups in Nebraska? And I think one of the most influential is actually the Nebraska State Education Association, Teachers Union. There's several others as well. One of them we keep hitting up against for some of the bills that we've been pushing for is, drawing a blank on the name. They represent city and county entities. Drawing a blank on the name right now. And so, government wants to maintain control. So they're going to fight against any bills that would place limitations on how much control they can exert over you as a citizen. Anyway, there's several groups that are fairly powerful and influential in Nebraska. But one thing that people don't necessarily recognize is in Nebraska, 80% of all registered lobbyists are non-compensated. That means they're not getting paid. That means there are people like me that are volunteering their time to go down and fight for whatever issue they really care about. The other thing is lobbyists can either be dedicated in-house. So again, NSEA, they probably have somebody on their payroll that is a dedicated lobbyist, or as a business. Say you have concerns about a bill, you can go out and contract a lobbyist to lobby on your behalf for your issues. And a lot of these lobbying firms, I mean, they may represent 5 to 15 different interests during a session. 80% of all the registered lobbyists in the state of Nebraska are actually non-compensated. They're people like me. And the next thing I went into is asking, what are you passionate about? Obviously, if you're attending the NFOA annual members meeting, if you're watching this video cast, you're concerned about the Second Amendment. But what else are you passionate about? I mean, what are your hobbies, your interests, your life values? And who makes the decisions and policies that affect how you live? Are those policymakers knowledgeable in the areas that they're legislating? What is the background of those senators? I mean, there's countless bills that are introduced every year. It varies, but on the first half session, which is a 90-day session, it's not unheard of to have 700 bills introduced, maybe more. I think this last year was 740 something. And if you are really concerned about something, then you're probably going to want to participate in the process. If you don't participate in the process, there's a good chance that whatever you're interested in is going to pass you by. When we look at the bills that get introduced and we start lobbying for or against something, we really dig into the details. It's the details that matter, not the name that's placed on a bill. I'm sure you can all think of countless examples of bills that have been introduced with some fancy title, but once you dig into the details, well, the title doesn't really reflect what's in the bill. The other thing that's important to understand is how much influence volume of communication has with some of these elected officials. The senators, like I said, there's 700 bills introduced. How many of those bills do you think they hear from anybody on? A lot of them not. I mean, the high profile bills, Medicare expansion, some of the firearms bills, not all of them, but some of them, certainly get a lot of emails and phone calls coming to them. But there's a lot of bills that get introduced that nobody heard about, doesn't go anywhere, and the senator never got a phone call or an email about it. It almost is like the bill didn't even exist because people didn't communicate about it. If a senator receives 20 phone calls about a bill, that piques their interest. 20 doesn't sound like a big number, does it? Mm-mm. And I did some math, and it's like, okay, we've got 1.9 million people in the state of Nebraska, and there's 49 senators. That means on average, they're representing a little under 39,000 people. A lot of them are under the legal voting age. And of course, those that are, a lot of them are not registered to vote. But 38,000 people that they represent. And if they only get 20 phone calls and that piques their interest, that says a lot of people don't reach out and talk to them about any given bill. If they get 50 phone calls, they're starting to wonder, why is this such a hot topic? If they get 100 phone calls, they're like, oh shit, I need to tread lightly because there's a lot of people paying attention to this. I don't know what the numbers are, but honestly, I think that there's probably 10 times, maybe 20 times as many people paying attention to a bill than actually contact the senator about the bill. A lot of people just kind of watch and see what's going on, but they're not reaching out to express their opinion on those things. So 100 pieces of communication on a single bill, that's a lot. There's very few bills introduced in any given session that are going to garner more than maybe 50 contacts. A pretty small percentage. I mean, there might be 10 or 15 real hot bills in any given session. And those are going to be in the 50 to 60 phone call range. A bit about what's necessary to be considered a lobbyist in the state of Nebraska. And if you're a registered lobbyist, there's some perks, I guess, or benefits to being registered in that you're able to, as a registered lobbyist, you're able to pull the senators off the floor during session. Because once things get going, it's hard to find the senator during the regular day. So you have to pull them off the floor to really push for your issue. You have a lot more access as a registered lobbyist. But it does come with a lot of extra paperwork. I mean, there's regular reporting requirements. You have to be formally affiliated with an organization, and that organization also has to be registered. That could be a lobbying entity, a law office or some lobbying office. that's registered, or it could be the organization you represent. In my case, the Nebraska Farm Owners Association. So what does a lobbyist do exactly? A lobbyist really is there to exert pressure to get a senator to vote a particular way on the issue that you're advocating for. And there's a lot of education involved in that as well. Countering bad information, trying to really prove your point as to why a bill is necessary or is not necessary. And it does require a lot of determination and persistence. But if you think about, if your job is to exert pressure to try to sway a senator a particular direction on a bill, who isn't able to do that? We all can participate in that process without being labeled a lobbyist, without being registered as a lobbyist. Anytime you contact your senator and express your opinion, you're trying to exert some pressure on them. So in a way, we're all lobbyists if we get active and we participate in the process. So some of the things that we need to do is, obviously, we apply pressure to take a position to oppose the bill or support a bill, depending on what it is. But the biggest thing you have to do is listen. Even if this is through email, hopefully you get a response and not a canned response of, oh, thanks for your input. I'll keep it under advisement when it comes up for debate. But if you can engage them in a conversation, even through email, you want to listen to, what are they telling you? They're likely telling you what their concerns happen to be. Whether they agree with you or disagree with you, if you listen, you can try to figure out where they stand and why. And if they actually want to engage you in a conversation, then that gives you the opportunity to counter any points that they have with facts and valuable stories, and continue to keep this conversation going in a respectful manner, of course, because it has to be respectful, even if you disagree, in order for them to continue to want to engage you. A lot of senators are willing to debate as long as it is respectful. You could disagree on everything. People laugh, they joke about my relationship with Ernie Chambers. I don't exactly get along with Ernie Chambers very well. But if you watch any of the hearings where I have testified, I have been at least respectful when he has tried to challenge me. And I think he appreciates the fact that I don't fly off the handle. I at least address him with some respect, even if I counter almost every stupid ass thing he says. The other question then is, okay, so who do you contact? I mean, obviously your senator is the first one that you'd want to contact, but there's more than that. And some of it comes down to the process and understanding the process. And real quick, if you're in Nebraska, those in Nebraska probably don't care. But in Nebraska, first Wednesday of January every year is when the new session begins. And the first 10 session days is when new bills are introduced. After they're introduced, they get directed to the appropriate committee for that committee to take all the bills that got directed to them and come up with a schedule for a hearing schedule, where people can come and voice their thoughts, either oppose or support every bill. And then you have the committee hearings. Approaching every single person on that committee, when a bill is coming up for the hearing, is totally appropriate. None of those committee members may be your representative, but because of where it is in the process, it's perfectly valid to approach every committee member and press your point of view around that week when a bill is being heard in committee. Beyond that, yes, you want to contact your senator, but you can have a broader network that you can claim some interest. So, I live in Omaha, but I was raised in Lancaster County. My parents live in Lancaster County, so I can contact the senator that represents that district and say, I spend time down in your district. I have family in your district. I may not live there, but I have contacts there. I do a lot of work in Sarpy County. I don't live there, but I spend time there. Anywhere that you have some ties, the senators representing those areas are certainly valid for you to contact. And again, if they're only getting 20 or 30 phone calls on a particular bill, one extra voice really can make a difference. So when do we contact them? I believe in relationship building. I believe in trying to have open communication with your senator on a regular, ongoing basis. You're going to be able to engage in a lot better conversations outside of session than when they are in session, actually, because they're not as busy. They're busy doing their day job, but they're not as busy with the legislative work. So they're a little more accessible between sessions. But certainly during the bill introduction period, as soon as a bill gets dropped, it's good to rally everybody and get them to contact their senator and say, hey, these X number of bills were introduced that I support, and these are the bills that I'm really concerned about and want to make sure that they don't live through the committee process, and we want to get them killed right away. But we want to start educating them on the, in our case, the gun bills as quickly as possible. And then, of course, when we have a bill scheduled for committee hearing, the week of that committee hearing, maybe the hearing's on Thursday, start talking to them every single day that week, starting on Monday, and continue on past the hearing. Going all the way through maybe Tuesday of the following week is fine, because after the hearing, it's going to take a week, maybe 2 weeks, before they go into executive session and decide whether they're going to vote to advance the bill or not. So for about a week after the hearing, it's still perfectly valid to continue to educate them and push them. And that's a great time to get that feedback too, and really counter with some hard facts, because that really is the purpose of the committee hearing process, is to try to collect as much information from both sides as possible. If it makes it out of the committee, eventually it'll come up on the agenda for the full body to debate. And as soon as it shows up on the agenda, it might take 2 days, it might take 2 weeks before it finally actually comes up for debate. But as soon as it hits the agenda, that's a great time to hit them. And then, ongoing communication throughout the session. Some things that I want to make sure you engage in this process, that some methods are more effective than others. And I don't necessarily mean in-person versus phone call versus email. It's very important, in order to maintain a professional image, that we focus on facts, legitimate studies, articles that can be verified, and use credible sources. If you end up forwarding a link to an article that ends up being a parody site, and you didn't know that it was a parody site, you have ruined your credibility with that particular person. And no matter how factual anything else you say in the future is, they're going to ignore you. So be very careful to make sure that you have the facts and any sources that you cite are valid and credible. And using that data is a really powerful way to try to refute any conflicting responses. In our case, we have a lot of anti-gun groups out there that are very emotional. And they use emotion almost exclusively in their bullying, lobbying for their side of their interests. But they will come up with these studies, these statistics, and it's very easy to find out where they came from and look at the study and realize how they were cherry-picked for data, that they have, completely twisted the narrative. An example would be the astronomical number of school shootings that have been happening lately compared to just a few years ago. And yet when you dig into the numbers, it's like, well, no. So you had a gang fight 3 blocks away, and the guy parked his car, wrecked his car on school property. That's not a school shooting. The victim was found on school property, but that wasn't a school shooting. And they come up with all kinds of things like that to really skew the numbers. So by coming up with valid data and valid studies to refute the things that they're being told, because initially some of these senators, they don't know any different. They're told X, so they kind of believe X until you can prove to them, no, that's actually false. That was inflated. That was made up. It was manufactured. I can show you how that was manufactured. The other thing that I think is really important, and we get caught up in this so easy, because the NFOA will say, hey, a dozen gun bills were introduced, 4 good ones and 8 bad ones, or maybe 6 bad ones and 2 that we're not even sure about yet, but we're keeping an eye on. It's really easy to get caught up in the trap of saying, hey, Senator, these 4 bills are really important to me. Well, it's good that you're reaching out and letting them know that those are important, but you really need to keep your communication to a single issue for each communication. So my recommendation is, if there's 4 bills that you're concerned about, write 4 different emails, make 4 different phone calls. Yes, it's going to take you a little bit longer, but a phone call and an email doesn't take that much time. But it's a way for them to be able to isolate and compartmentalize the communication and not have that crossover between bills. Because you may have 4 bills you are concerned about, that you support, and maybe there's 1 or 2 that they're willing to support and the other they don't. So we want to keep each bill and each issue in its own communication stream so that we don't have that overlap. I also talked about some of the additional avenues that we can take. Obviously, we want to exert pressure on the elected senators or city council members, whoever we're talking about. I use the senators as my normal example. But we need to get other people aware of what's going on. It's not just those that agree with us and those that don't. There's a big group in the middle that doesn't know the first thing about our issues, but they might be interested, and they really haven't formed an opinion yet. Get involved in some of the radio talk shows. A lot of them will allow you to call in. Some of them, maybe they don't, but you can send an email and start communicating to the talk show host. Letters to the editor. I know that the Lincoln Journal-Star doesn't have a reputation for ever promoting anything on our side of the story, But almost every other paper is willing to publish some of these letters to the editor. And even the Journal Star, if there's a really well-written one, they might, just to stir the pot. Other people can tear down the person that wrote that in. But letters to the editor, if you like to write and can, clearly get your thoughts out on paper, sending a letter to the editor is a pretty powerful thing. And we don't have enough of those, I don't think. And social media. My take on social media is a little bit different. And I'm not talking about making a lot of posts on your own page, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a very targeted, goal-based, goal-oriented approach to utilizing social media. And that would be, if you have the local paper, the local news station has some article, some story where you can communicate clearly the importance of a particular bill or issue that's in the legislature right now, you can post a link to a really good reference. And my recommendation is, once you do that, walk the hell away. Do not come back. Do not look at the responses. Because it's not about engaging in a debate. It's not about you continuing to stand your ground and continuing to push or advocate for your position. The goal is to put factual information with links to credible sources so that the people in the middle, not the people that agree, not the people that disagree, but all these people in the middle that haven't had their mind made up yet, that they may go out and look at some of this information and come to the proper conclusion. It's not about getting into a debate. And you can actually lose achieving your goal if you do engage in that debate. I know some people can't help themselves. I totally get that. But if you keep your eye on the goal and understand there's a purpose behind putting some of these things out in social media links, then it's a little bit easier to walk away and not engage. Some other things to keep in mind is be truthful. Even if you have to admit to something that may be less than flattering, or maybe there's some aspect, don't deny it. I mean, just be truthful and say, yes, that is actually a fact. However, blah, 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 blah. And you can refute, the general premise, even though one sliver of truth may not be so flattering, it doesn't nullify all of the other facts. And again, listening to those that you're engaging is going to give you more information about how you can advance your position. This gives you the opportunity to ask questions for clarification. Ask them for specifics. Okay, you say that you're concerned about blah. What specifically are you concerned about? And if they can give you a definite answer, great. Now you have something that you can refute. If they won't give you a clear answer, then that gives you something to keep pushing and pushing until they're willing to either admit they don't know what they're talking about, they just have an opinion, or, maybe actually get them to consider, okay, maybe I don't know why I believe what I do. Again, you have to be persistent and you have to be patient because it feels like you're beating your head against the wall sometimes with certain people. I also want to point out that for really disagreeing with our position in the Second Amendment community, they should not be ignored, and we shouldn't just say, I'm not going to engage them because I already know their position. Again, if they're getting hit with 20 or 30 antis and none of the proponents of the bills we care about ever contact them, what do you think their opinion is going to be of this? They're only getting hit by one side. Even though a senator may not agree with your position, you need to continue to communicate. And the more that do, I can think of one example with the Lincoln City Council earlier this year when they first had on the agenda the conversation about, well, it wasn't the storage. Was it storage? I don't remember. They had so damn many things they were trying to slam down our throat. Anyway, there were like 150 people contacted the city council that said, you can't put these kinds of restrictions on gun owners, compared to about 60 that were in favor of putting all these oppressive restrictions in place. So we actually had a 2.5 to 1 ratio, which was awesome because it got the message through. You don't want to try and pass this. I wish I could remember. I've slept since then, so I don't remember what it was. But it was before this last round where Senator Christensen Councilman Christensen was able to pretty much neuter the bill. Okay, so I talk about what to do. This should go without saying, but I have to say it. There's certain things not to do. Don't argue. I mean, you can debate. You can get into a disagreement, but don't get into an actual argument. Don't insult them. Don't threaten them. And for God's sakes, don't say, I vote. If you're engaged in the process, it's pretty much a given that you vote. It's just kind of a silly comment to make. And again, there's no reason to threaten anybody. We just need to make sure that as many people assert their position as possible and let the volume speak and let the facts speak. Your opposition has a very loud voice, and we're in a fortunate position that it's a very disrespectful voice. A lot of the people who don't support us as senators don't have much respect for some of the opposition because of how nasty they are. So if you can continue to be respectful and continue that communication, be persistent, and be careful with the emotion, then we have a better chance of getting through and being respected and having our position respected. I mentioned emotions. The opposition is very emotional. And emotion can play an important role. And I would say if you have a personal story that you can relate, that's pertinent to the bill that we're talking about. Maybe we're talking about the red flag bill. If there's a personal story that you can relate, that might get emotional. But not in an angry emotional, but rather a sadness type of emotion. If you can conjure up these stories and conjure up that emotion so that it becomes very personal, the senators generally are going to receive those very personal stories a lot more so. I mean, everybody's different, right? I mean, you have some of these folks are lawyers, some of them are nurses, some of them are farmers. They come from a very diverse background. So their style is very different from one person to the next. Some people are not going to respond to an emotional story. Some people are. Some people are going to respond very well to very well documented facts. Others not so much. So, being able to read the person you're interacting with to figure out what are they responding to certainly helps. So, if you have a story you can share, it might get emotional, and that can be effective. Ultimately, it comes down in whatever it is that you care about, or you're going to lose out. If you don't use your voice, you have no voice. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And I mean, that pretty much covered what I had down there. And then we had a Q&A session.
There, maybe if I unmute myself there. Okay, and we're gonna get into some Q&A. I think I got enough notes here. I think we're good. I think I wrote down the same ones you did. We've got out there in the chat, we've got Mr. Garrett Crocked, and I don't know if you're familiar with Garrett, but I know that he lives in.
Yeah, we've talked on the phone a few times.
Okay, cool. He's been having some good comments, some good questions out there. So Garrett, we said we would get back to those. If anybody did leave any questions or comments and we missed them or we don't circle back to them, please put them back in the chat and either tag myself or Sandhills Sweetheart. And if you don't know how to tag, you just put the @ sign in front of the screen name exactly the way it's written. If you're on a computer, it should even pop up the screen name. But if you're on a phone, just put @ that person's screen name. Just spell it the exact same way, and then it actually highlights it on our screen so we can see that you tagged us in it. One of the first questions out there was, how does one become a lobbyist for NFOA? Is there a process for that? Is there an opening for that?
There's certainly, I was trying to come up with something funny, but I'll avoid that comment.
Really classy. Funny is okay.
Get in touch with somebody on the board. Trey or Trish would probably be a great contact because they've been on the board longer than the other members. And Trish is certainly very involved in that. And, would love to have a conversation and see where that role can fit, because we actually have more of a lobbying committee. We have 2 or 3 people that are considered lobbyists from the perspective that they actively go down, walk the halls of the Capitol. They'll provide testimony at the hearings. But we have several others that have been very involved on the legislative committee in helping craft that testimony, in helping come up with strategy, and a lot of the other behind the scenes types of lobbying tasks. And in the past, what we've done is somebody has shown that they've got great aptitude and good reasoning and seems to might be a good fit. We might have them provide testimony on one of the smaller bills or supplemental testimony on any of the bills, whether it be small or big, because we try to come up with, for testimony strategy, we try to make sure that we don't have a bunch of people going up saying the same thing. So we will structure things out. We might have 5 points that we want to talk about, but you only have 3 minutes. So you have 5 different people each making their own point. So get a hold of Patricia Harold or Trey on the board and say, hey, I want to talk to you about possibly helping out with the lobbying committee and maybe being a lobbyist.
Awesome. Okay. Before I grab some more questions here, I did take a few notes and just a couple comments. I just want to touch back on some of the things that you had said, because I didn't want to interrupt at the time, which for me is very difficult. So took everything I had, but I wrote it down so I knew I wouldn't forget that way. That's my problem, is if I don't say it right away, I'll forget I was going to say it. So you had said something where we've got a few people who pay attention and know what's going on, and a whole lot of people out there. And I don't think our state's different than other states in this regard, but we've got a whole lot of people out there who either aren't paying attention or just don't know enough about a given issue. And I've said that here many, many times. Typically what I see is we've got somewhere in that 10 to 20% mark on one end of the spectrum that are going hard at this one side of an issue. On the reverse side, we've got 10 to 20% of the people that are, going hard and talking and making some noise, that leaves somewhere between 60 and 80% of the people who are on the fence, or kind of in the middle of the road. They don't really, either they don't know about the issue, or they don't know enough about the issue, or don't care enough about the issue to pick a side. And those are what I keep saying. Those are the people we want to target, because, and one of the things that I'm going to bring up later is not to call names, but that to me is the epitome of what the term FUD has grown to mean, is the people that own guns, and they don't want to lose their guns, but at the same time they don't really know enough or care enough to take a hard stance on a given topic. And so we want to get to those people, and we want to find a way to I guess make them care, or find a way that to say things that they will care about. Of course, we don't want to force anybody into caring, but of course we can't do that.
Damn it.
You're gonna care and you're gonna like it. But that's what we want to do, is try to reach those people. And that's the biggest thing, is the being respectful. And we've talked about that in the past too. When somebody, especially on social media now, because we've all been there and commented on a post, and then it rubbed somebody the wrong way, and then all of a sudden we're into some sort of a debate. Maybe it's in person. It's a lot easier to type it than it is to say it to somebody's face. But when somebody hits you with, well, you're so stupid, or you're such an a-hole, or you're a racist, whatever. I mean, somebody starts calling you names, the first thing you do is shut down and put the defenses up. And that's when the claws come out, or what have you. The chance for any actual discussion is gone at that point, because you don't care what they say after that. You already tuned out because you got insulted, and it doesn't matter what they say. You're not going to listen. You're ready to counterattack. So if we don't want people to be that way toward us, then we have to not call names. We have to not strike out. We have to not lash out. Even if they try to provoke us, we have to see it for what it is, and try and sidestep, I guess, if we can, or just ignore it. It's not what they call you, it's what you answer to that matters. So kind of keep some of that in mind as we're talking to some people, especially our elected officials. And again, like Rod had said, especially if we want them to take us seriously, then we've got to take this discussion, the conversation at the time, whether it's a letter, a phone call, maybe you actually get to talk to the person that you're trying to reach, and you're not leaving them a voicemail or writing them a letter or an email. You actually get to speak to them. Well, do you want this to be something where they just shut down and they check out and they just write you off, and it doesn't matter what you say? It seems like an awful lot of work to go to waste the effort. That's not what we want.
So I'd like to chime in, John.
Yeah,
you're exactly right. I've been quiet the whole time, listening to you, Rod. Thank you, brother. I commented in the side chat to John. He's like, I'm taking notes. I'm like, crap, I'm not. And there was so much I wanted to go, yeah. Anyway, you're exactly right. And this is the problem. We on the right thinking brain tend to use facts. Rod, you mentioned that. Back it up with facts. Have the facts. Back it up. The people on the left are so emotional. They're going to be the first ones to call names. And at that point, it's like, how do you deal with somebody that is not willing to go, wait a minute, we have facts here. You don't want to, and that's Steven Crowder. He does change my mind. He's got facts. He's got this and it's like, how do you deal with people in your daily life? And, we were talking about how do you get through to everybody. And one thing I wanted to say, Rod, was a lot of the people that are in the middle, they watch mainstream media. They got tunnel vision. So how do you get through to those people, that are totally acting on emotions and immediately come out of the gate the minute that you disagree with them and start calling you names. You shut down. You just go, how do you deal with them? We on this side are trying to be logical and say, let's look at the situation. Let's use your head. Let's study it a little more. Let's not act on emotions. Let's act on facts and research. How do you deal with people that just totally bombard you with the crap that, and it's like, oh, no. It's like, okay, what do? You shut down. You walk away. You're not going to change their mind. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you change them? You're not gonna. They're already set. Their emotions have already got them set to think that way. And I'm gonna finish it with this: weak-minded people.
It's not necessarily the people that are coming at you that way that we need to reach, though. Because remember, especially on social media or any other public place, and social media is just as public as the town square most of the time, unless you're having a private conversation, on Messenger. It's out there for anybody to see that wants to look, or at least has access to, that page or that group of people on Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is. I'm only on Facebook and YouTube, so that's why I always say Facebook. But in my opinion, still, even though you're not going to change that person's mind, there are way more people watching than just the two of you. And what you say may not reach the person. Like you said, their mind's made up, but so is yours. They're not going to change your mind either, but they saw fit to tell you what they think. And what you want to do is, again, be respectful, because people take note of how you handle it. And they're going to look at not only what you say, but how you say it. But what's important is that they're paying attention. People are watching. And we may get through to some of the people that are the bystanders in a situation like that. When Crowder does this change my mind, very rarely does he change the person's mind that tried to change his. Now, granted, it's a foregone conclusion. No matter who sits down, they're not going to change his mind on a given topic, because he's done the research and he comes prepared. But he doesn't very often change the mind of the person that sits down there either. And that's not his intent. And it does occasionally happen, but he's not necessarily talking to the person in that other chair. He's talking to the group of people, 50, 100, however many people gathered around there on the campus. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that are paying attention, and he's trying to reach them. And of course, the however many thousands or millions of people watch later on his website or on YouTube. And so keep that in mind, all of us too, when we're having those discussions. We're not just talking to one person, we're talking to the whole world potentially.
Yes.
And what we say does matter, and we want to make sure that we don't shut everybody else down in the process.
I was just going to say, the best thing that we can do, no matter, what side you're on, of course, we're all pro 2A, and the best thing you can do is communicate and get your word out, but have the facts. Like you were saying about Crowder, he's got how many people watching? He's got the facts laid out, and
the sources.
Crowder will tell you he's a comedian. That's how he got where he's at. He was a comedian. He was a stand-up comic, and now he's got his radio show and his YouTube, but he's from Canada. He moved here. He migrated, immigrate. I don't know. He's an American now, but he saw the freedoms of America, and that's why he came here. And you see what I mean? So it's like, yes, exactly, John. He's putting it out there that all the people that are standing around watching, what he's doing is making them think about it. Use your brain. Use some freaking logic and not emotions and what the media has fed you. Use your own brain to think about this. And when you start looking at the facts, maybe if you put emotions aside, you might see the truth.
Couple more things before we
about everybody that's watching and not the person that you're engaging. I mean, think of it as an informal debate. I mean, a couple of years ago, John Lott came to Lincoln and engaged in a debate, and neither him nor the former mayor that he had debated, neither one of them expected that they would change each other's mind. It was about the audience being exposed to a lot of facts. And, the question that you started out with, which is how do you deal with that? I guess the first question that I ask myself is, do I care? I mean,
honestly,
do I know the person?
Right.
That's totally different than if it's a complete stranger. I mean, I could just very easily say, all right, and go about my day. If it's somebody that I know, then I'm more likely to respond with a question. Well, have you considered, have you thought about, have you ever seen, but something, but respond with a question instead of an argumentative statement.
Make them think about it. Make them stop and think.
If it's somebody that I know, I'm also less likely to, or less willing to step on their toes too. If it's somebody that I've never met and they're just a screen name, or maybe an avatar or a profile picture and nothing else, then, if I hurt their feelers, so, there's somebody out there in the world. If you are a friend of mine or a relative of mine and I know you, that means that I automatically put more value in your opinion than somebody I don't know. I also put more value on our relationship than I do the non-relationship with somebody I don't know. And that makes a huge difference on how I'm going to treat the situation as well, for me personally. And again, I may ask some more questions, or I may try and reword or clarify, things that I've said. Even things that I've said in past videos. I've had people contact me on those videos and say, well, I think you're saying this, and I don't necessarily agree with that. And I would say, no, I agree with what you think. That's not what I meant in my video. And, maybe I wasn't very clear. And when people reach out to me, whether they were my friend or not, and they ask for that clarification, it makes me feel good that at least I got somewhere with that video and I made somebody think. And that's always my number one intent, is just to get somebody to think. And if I have a debate with somebody, again, it's to get them to think, but also to get that thought process started in anybody else who's listening or reading what I'm saying or what's being exchanged. So that makes a huge difference. I want to cover a couple things before we go back to some more questions here, and see if I can kind of lump these together. One of the things that you had said, Rod, is emotion's not a bad thing, and there are ways to bring that back in. One of the best ways to do it is with a personal experience or a personal anecdote. And I 100% agree with that. The reason that is so powerful, not just because we're tugging at heartstrings, because if it's not genuine, people see through that, just like we do when the opposition tries that stuff. So we want to be genuine, but if this is a real story and it really affected you and you're telling the real emotions that stem from that experience, then that's a great thing. The reason it carries more weight is because we can testify against a bill. For instance, out there in the chat, Garrett mentioned the red flag laws that, there's a bill in Lincoln right now waiting to be voted on for red flag laws here in our state. And we can say, well, if this law is passed, then hypothetically this could happen, that could happen. There's a chance of this, there's a chance of that. Now, those are powerful, but if you give an example of this is an experience, this did happen, this is real, this This is raw, and this is the truth. And then this law would have made things worse, or would not have changed anything, and is a dumb law, or whatever is the case. But there's more weight to this really happened than, well, this maybe could sort of one day be a possibility of happening. Maybe. Same reason we watch movies that are based on true stories. They carry more weight than the ones that are completely fantasy. If it's based on a true story, then we want to see, well, what happened? And if it's a good movie, then it actually kind of tells the right story, and it's not a whole bunch of dramatization thrown in with it. One other thing I want to mention before we jump into some more questions, we did get a $5 super chat out there from Blitz. So thank you for that. And one of the things that Blitz had said was make sure that you dress for the meeting. So if you are if you're granted an audience with somebody and you actually get a chance to sit down and talk with them face to face, again, it's not just what you say that will have them take you seriously or not take you seriously. It's what you show up looking like. If you show up in, BDUs and a come and take it or what was it? Sic semper tyrannis, I think is what Blitz had mentioned in the comment. Thus always to tyrants. If you show up wearing that t-shirt to your senator or your representative or your council person's office, then they've already formed an opinion of you before you've ever opened your mouth. And while you may be able to overcome that hurdle, it's a hurdle now that you do have to overcome. Whereas if you just show up, look nice, like you would show up for, any job interview or business meeting or a court appearance, anything like that, then they're going to take you more seriously and not immediately write you off as just another gun fanatic or gun nut or, what have you, fill in the blank there. So that does make a huge difference too. So as far as questions, we had a couple more out there that I had seen. And I know this is city specific, but we can make this general for all of us who live in or near a town, or if you don't live in town, then maybe this would apply to county. But Garrett had wanted suggestions on how to engage the city council, and specifically for Omaha. There are some dumb carry laws. I don't have to tell you, Rod, what they are, or the dumb laws in Omaha. So what are suggestions in just engaging council members, not just to fight this in Lincoln at the state level, but even on a local level to change some of those dumb ordinances, or what we feel are dumb?
Well, like I was saying earlier, I mean, it's good to have continued ongoing conversations, not just during a session. So if you have established some communication with your city council members, great, continue and have a variety of topics that you talk about, and start giving examples as to why these things need to be changed, and see if over time somebody might bite and go, yeah, maybe we ought to talk about that. Maybe I'll champion that effort. But yeah, I mean, you just have to have ongoing conversations with these folks. And, hopefully, I mean, the problem is you have just over half that's on one side and just under half that's on the other side. And that could flip any given election. So, a lot of times somebody's not necessarily willing to introduce, a bill or some initiative based upon whether they think it's any like. They're looking at what is the chance of me being successful as part of their evaluation.
Sure.
But we've had turnover. I talked to Buster Brown, who was the former Omaha city administrator. I think that was his title. And probably had a deeper understanding of the city of Omaha than anybody else in office, anybody else in city government. And we lost a hell of a resource when he retired last year. But I had him go back and say, hey, okay, there's certain things that are on the books here, and I can't tell when they were enacted. Can you figure this out? And he went back. He goes, no, it predates the 1940s. That's all I can tell you.
Wow.
So, so a lot of these things have been on the books, and a lot of people don't even know that they're a regulation. So by having these conversations with your city council members, you can make them aware of what some of these silly things happen to be, and gauge their response to.
All right. One more thing that I had seen out there in the comments, and again, I know this is kind of Nebraska specific, but it's not just Nebraska. So this doesn't apply just to our state. Just because we're asking somebody that lives in the same state as me, that doesn't mean this doesn't apply to the rest of you who don't live in our state. I mean, out of the panel here, we've got 3 of us in Nebraska, 3 of us that are not, that are kind of scattered across at least the eastern half of the state or of the country. So, and out in the chat, I mean, we've got a ton of people out there from all over that are watching and listening. This doesn't just apply here, is what I'm saying. But
John, I was just going to jump in and say, y'all better pay attention to what's going on around the country. I don't care what state you live in.
It's an epidemic
coming to your state next. Yeah,
that's just it. And that's the comment that was brought out there, and I believe again it was Garrett. Do we need to do something now, and what? Not just to do something, but what is the something that we need to do to get ahead of any potential red flag law bill? Hopefully it won't be passed. And that, again, is something that we can take up in some of our rally cries on Sunday on the online rally. Here in our state, at least, is we want to make sure all of our representatives know that we do not agree with Senator Moorfeld on his red flag law or extreme risk protection order bill that he introduced. That being said, what is there to do, if anything, at this point, to contact our sheriff's departments and find out if they are willing to enforce such a law were it to be voted into law? Things like, all of the sanctuary counties and sanctuary cities that are popping up, especially across Virginia. They're in the spotlight right now because this is all happening fresh there. So what is there to do, and what, if anything, should we do to maybe try and get ahead of this to where it becomes a non-issue, hopefully?
You make a really good point. And Rod, you were saying it, contact your local, that get a hold of your county sheriffs, ask them, what's your point of view? What should we do? Let's all find out. You know what I mean? We got to find out where we stand, no matter where you are in your county. And the whole thing in Virginia, and the one sheriff saying, oh yeah, I'm going to deputize everybody. I'm like, more power to you, buddy. So I guess we, no matter where you live, have to get involved in the county level, to the state level, to the federal level. We have to find out where we stand.
I want to challenge people to take themselves, a step further than just contacting the senators. All these things are important. Go run for city council, go run for your school board, and really shake things up a little. Like we said before, if you can't change your opponent, you could at least convince the masses to hear your side or your point, and that could be very powerful. Getting quoted at a city council meeting for something that's pro 2A, or at a school board meeting that's pro 2A. I think that would be incredible. You might say, well, I don't have time. How many hours per week or per month do these city council people really have to put into what they do? And then think about how much time you waste not doing anything productive. So do you want to make a change, or you just want to sit around? So yeah, we need to do that. Like you guys said before, we need to be the lobbyists. That was a great idea to John, when you sent me that invite, you said, we need to look at the idea of us becoming the lobbyists. And then Rod, you define the lobbyists. We're the lobbyists are the ones that inform and put the pressure on and educate and advise the representatives, the senators and such. I mean, we all can definitely take a part in that role. But I think that I really would like to see more people just get involved locally. I mean, just take a couple hours out of your month and go to that meeting, or start attending them. Ask questions at those meetings,
Absolutely. We don't get any participation at the local level with county board or city councils. And we have a hell of a time finding anybody worth a shit to run for office.
Yep.
No, I was just going to say what Travis said was totally right. If Pro 2A, do this, do that. You got to get the word out one way or the other.
Again, I always got to lobby for the teachers here. Imagine having one person on a local school board that wants to bring up the discussion of arming the teachers. Oh my God, the uproar that would come out of that. Could you imagine that? Now let's get some parents in there and have them speak their minds. And I think you might find that there's a lot more support for that issue or bring in some parents and have them testify on somebody's behalf. I mean, there's just a whole untapped potential there that you'll be touching the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts of those people that are on the 2A side that maybe otherwise wouldn't come out and say anything. I just being very public about it and being very open and representing people. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of potential there, man.
So many people are afraid of rocking the boat or being the first one to speak out. But if one person would just speak their true feelings, yeah, you'd be surprised how many other people in your school district feel the way that you do and also weren't going to say anything. It's just like when we were in school, or if you are in any kind of a meeting or any kind of continuing education or training with your job now, even as adults, when you get a group of people and the instructor or whoever is taking questions says, are there any questions? When you hear the comment that says speak up, if you have that as a question, chances are somebody else does too. So there's no such thing as a stupid question. Don't be afraid to ask it. Maybe somebody else is afraid to ask the same question. It's the same thing when you start talking about your beliefs, your convictions, leaving religion out of it completely. Still, we have beliefs and convictions about what's right, what's not right. And if you are willing to just take that first step past your comfort zone, out of your bubble, you'd be surprised how many people will step up and join you and stand beside you. It just takes that first one. Somebody's got to be that first one. If you and Travis, you had said the common complaint or objection is, well, I don't have the time to do this. Are you going to have time to complain about it and whine and cry when your rights are gone? But what are you going to do with your time then? Are you going to wish that you had spoken up, or are you going to sit there and bend over and take it? What do you prefer?
Spot on.
I think I'll stand up and protest.
I'm not bending over for anybody. I'm sorry. And if anybody didn't like my analogy, I'm sorry about that too. It's kind of funny, Rod, whenever somebody, drops a colorful word, everybody else in the chat and the panel is like, is Sandhills going to call him out? Because I've booted people before. But it's
colorful.
We
haven't dropped any F-bombs and we've kept them to a bare minimum. And you know what? It's time sometimes that these gloves come off a little bit. So we're not going to make it an issue. But seriously, when we've got these people that, they're afraid to get involved, or they're afraid to speak up, or they're afraid to say something, that doesn't mean that they're afraid to follow if the right leader would just step up. So many of us have a camera and a microphone and we're not afraid to run our mouths on the internet. What's the difference between going downtown and hitting a city council meeting or hitting a school board meeting, especially if you're a parent and you have a vested interest in that district? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And you know what, man? As for the language, these are serious times we're living in. It's time to step up our game a little bit. And these are serious issues. This is our freedom. We're going to get emotional too. It happens.
I said, there's some time.
It's getting to a critical point now where if we don't start acting, little things are going to start nipping away at us. And, we're going to wish we had stepped up and done something or questioned something, or again, called the senator or informed our representatives on our feelings on an issue,
Mm-hmm.
Travis, I just
Yep.
turned 53. I've been watching this. I had an FL for 9 years, way back when, worked at the gun store. I've been watching this, quite honestly, the whole attack against the 2A for 35, 40 years. You know what I mean? And it's like it's always been one little piece at a time, one little piece at a time, a little niche here and a little niche there. Now we're looking at Virginia and a lot of the other places, and it's like, no, they're just going to outright. And people are saying, no, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
I heard something kind of scary, and I listen to both sides of news talk radio because I like to learn a little bit more about my enemy. So I was listening to the liberal left radio on XM, and there's a gal talking, and they were talking about their strategy for conquering Texas. She goes, if we can get, and I can't remember what the county was, something up in the northern county. She goes, there's people that are moving to Texas from Chicago, from what'd she say, New York, from LA, that are moving to Texas, California. She goes, we're going to focus on them. That's our demographic that we want to go, because we think if we can flip, I can't remember what county she said. I wish I could remember what it was. She goes, we get that. We're pretty sure that within the next 4 to 8 years, we can get the entire state to go blue. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. All right.
I'm just going to say, God bless Texas. Good luck.
No. Hey,
no,
look at
they can flip it. They can flip it.
We said that about Virginia.
Politics, but they're never going to flip the people.
But
I understand that. But then once they get the big cities and the numbers and the votes, then they start making the laws. And then you get another New York, and you get another Chicago, and then you get another LA or Orange County where your guns are gone. You can't even get a carry permit.
Now, Orange County is the good one.
Well, whatever. I don't know. California. It all scares me anyway.
On the West Coast.
All right. Well, LA, I don't know.
They're a little island of light in a dark sea.
Fine. Fresno, whatever. I'll pick another one. Okay. I don't even know anybody there.
But the thing is, in the state of Texas, and I don't know if we have anybody from Texas who is out there with us live, and there may be a few that catch this on the replay, but the state of Texas is not as hard and fast red as what we all want to believe that it is. And those of you in Texas that keep your thumb on the pulse of politics are probably nodding along right now saying, yeah, this is actually the case. Houston is going that way. Austin is pretty well bright blue at this point from all the accounts that I hear. And I watch a few podcasts that come out of Dallas that these folks do know what's happening in their state. If anybody doesn't know who Lieutenant Colonel Allen West is, he is running for, I don't know the exact title, but the head of the Republican Party in the state of Texas is the position that he is running for. So if he gets that position, then he'll be running the Republican Party for Texas, or the chief executive there for the Republicans in Texas, and he's going to do everything he can. And he's a very well-spoken man, but of course a retired Army colonel as well. So I mean, he knows what he's talking about before he talks about a given topic, and hopefully most of the counties in Texas won't flip and go to the blue side, but again, it only takes a few to get that voting majority, right? And we said the same thing about Virginia, that it would never turn blue, but look what happened there with, again, the fact that people were too complacent to get off their butts and go vote because they never believed it could happen there. It can happen where you live. If you don't go vote, then you are not only not helping, you are hurting your state if you don't want it to go the opposite way that you feel. I don't care which side of the issue or pick an issue that you're on. If you're not willing to go vote, then you're not doing your side any good. In fact, you're potentially harming your state because it's not going to go the way that you want it to, whether you agree with what I say or not. Speaking of states and speaking of California, out there in the chat, Mad Sexy wants to know, Rod and the rest of the panel too, the advice that we would give for, in his case, he's been ignored by legislators in California, can't get anybody to talk to him. Moving is not an option, nor is it one I would recommend anyway, because if all of the, I don't want to say good people or bad people, but in our case, you know, we think we're on the side of the right. So if all of the good people or the good guys leave California, then what good? I mean, you know, what good can we possibly do there? And I know if Calaveras were here, he would say the same thing. He's has no intention of moving out of Northern California because he would rather fight from within than wish that California would change. And he can't do any good if he moves out of state. Mad Sexy sounds like kind of the same situation. He's not leaving. So what advice can we give to the people who live in the states that you know, a lot of people just kind of write them off as being lost. And I don't think that's the case. But if you can't get your lawmakers to listen to you or to talk to you, then what's the next step?
I can say this, y'all in Californistan. I don't know why you haven't moved, but I understand why you haven't moved, and you are fighting the good fight. And to them guys, my God, they're so restricted. It's like the people in Chicago that I want to throw this out there. I know it's kind of vulgar, but it's not. It's heyjackass.com. Budget Guns and Gear put it up, and it's like, go look at the statistics in Chicago and people that died. And then we were talking about the New Jersey shooting, and it's like, oh, tough to get guns in New Jersey. The people in California, I can understand why you stay there. It's a beautiful state. And why would you want to move? But for those guys, I'm right there with them. Right? Fight for it. You know what I mean?
And, you know, we always say, oh, well, there's a lot of gun owners in California. There's a lot, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. And we're just not active in this and that. And again, like I said before, when I made my school board statement and also my city council statement, you run on that conservative pro 2A platform and you stay firm about it. You educate yourself on that. You present yourself in a respectful manner. You'd probably get the votes. Those people are like, yeah, you know what? I want to vote for that guy because he appeals to me or she appeals to me for the issues they're standing for. And I mean, I'm still convinced that one of the reasons why Trump was able to get elected was because he appealed to the conservative gun owner in the U.S. And we saw our alternative and we thought, you know what? It's this or that. This guy says he's on my side. This is the person I'm going to go for.
Well,
right?
a lot of people were just voting for not Hillary at that point, but
yeah.
He did win a lot of us over with some of his comments.
Wait a minute. I got to interrupt. And
one
say,
of which was
hashtag not Hillary.
One of his comments, unfortunately, was the 8-year assault on your gun rights is over.
Yeah, all the stuff that came out of his NRA convention that he attended and what he was saying to us. I mean, everyone was convinced of thinking, oh, this is what we need right here to get the rights back. This is what we need to seal the deal. This is
and
it. But the point I was trying to make is if you go and run on that platform and you make an appeal and you get out there and contact those gun owners and those people that want some of that freedom back, I really got a feeling that you would become popular and you'd be able to get the votes that you need to get in wherever it is you're running for, just because that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Yeah.
That's the only point that I'm making with Trump's comments is if you say those things to get elected and then it turns out that you didn't really mean them, people aren't going to vote for you a second term.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're only saying things that you really do believe and you really
I was going to say the whole thing that we seen on, media saying Trump going, oh, take the guns first.
Yeah, due process second. Yeah.
Yeah, he was meeting with Pelosi and Feinstein, which Feinstein, she has a concealed carry permit in her home state, and it's all good for her to carry a gun, but you don't. Okay, to see Trump go, oh, due process later, I'm like, is he playing 3-level chess, or is this?
He's playing what he always does, which is he's telling people what they want to hear in order to coddle them and mollify them at the time.
A prescribed response,
basically. Now you can call that the 3D chess, whatever you want to call it. I call it being wishy-washy. I don't want, especially the chief executive of the land, I don't want somebody who's only going to tell people what they want to hear and then just go and do his own thing that he was always going to do anyway. Just be transparent and be honest about what you're going to do, and don't be afraid to step on a toe or two in the process. That's part of politics, unfortunately. Just know which toes you can step on and which ones you can't, and make sure that you don't seal your own fate if you want to be reelected back to the same position.
I was going to say prescribed response and impeachment. What a joke. I'm sorry. I can't stop laughing at the Democrats that have been trying to impeach him for so long. And it's like, oh, you bring up evidence. You got nothing. It's false. You got evidence. Adam Schiff.
It's comical until you realize that
you know, the sad thing is, it's you'll watch it and you go, oh my God, it's funny, but it's not funny because that is our tax dollars being wasted on
the money that they've spent trying to get Trump out of office.
Political.
Everybody on this panel would retire with that money.
Yes, it's like political driven.
We're taking that off on our taxes this year, right? As a write-off.
Everybody
gets an individual.
I'm not gonna pay my taxes if that's what they're going to waste their money on. I wish I could actually.
How much is now? $30 million divided by 300 million. Everybody gets a $10 tax rebate for having to deal with our money being wasted on that. Yeah.
Not only are they wasting their money on nonsense, but they're not doing the job that we put them there to do. Also at the same time.
Yeah, and it further shows that they're just not necessary because our country's running just fine without them. So
ran when the government was shut down, except for a few paychecks didn't come through on time.
You know, if I tried to override my superior all day long and didn't do my job that I was supposed to do, I would have been out of a job within the first 48 hours. But these guys can take months off of life and go sit there and try to go chase after somebody because they think they're doing the right thing. So
yep.
Yeah. Hey, can we all agree that we need term limits? Because really.
Oh, I think we all do agree.
Yeah, and this is the thing with term limits. You know, you get pro Constitution people in there. You don't want to see them go, but I guess maybe you got to vote in more pro constitutionalist people. But think about this. I'm going to tell you this. I'm 53 years old. I'm trying to remember when Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein were not in the government. I was maybe 21, 22. You see where I'm coming from? And Schumer, Charles Schumer. You see what I mean? It's like this whole career politician crap. No, there's too much of this career politician crap that keep pushing the same anti-2A, anti-constitution. No, no. How do they get reelected? And I'm sorry if you disagree with me or not, but you know, y'all say go out and vote. Guess what? That's corrupt. It's I'm gonna say that, you know, Chicago politics at the best, your dead relatives and pet vote. So
the only way to combat that is to get more votes against them than for them.
I think the way to combat that is to get more evidence and put the evidence out there that it's corrupt.
That only happens if we vote in the people that are willing to expose it. That only happens if we get off our butts and go to the voting booth. And that only happens if people actually believe that their vote makes a difference. It does. Virginia is proof that your vote makes a difference because your lack of a vote gets you an entirely Democrat-run state. And if you are not a Democrat, that's probably not going to be a good thing for you. I want to wrap up. I want to say a couple different things, and basically they're kind of a call to action, a couple different calls to action at the same time. Let's see here. Mad Sexy's wanting to know. Oh, Rod, Mad Sexy wants to know your ideas on what to do from within California where they won't talk to him. What would you say?
Well, it really comes down to needing to find a way to make them care. And what all politicians care about more than anything else, Come up with a long list.
Money?
They care about getting reelected.
Power.
Oh, yeah,
honestly,
re-election,
I was going to say what politicians care about: reelection
Yeah, they care
and
about
a
getting
paycheck.
and
Reelection and a paycheck. That's what they care about. That's the look. I'm going to say best line I ever heard was in Red October, Hunt for Red October. He says, "Look, I'm a politician. When I'm not stealing or when I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops." And I went, "Yep, politician, pretty much."
All right, we'll let Rod speak now.
so it's not, there's not a really simple answer on this, but the highest level, the easiest way to describe this is either social media or something really needs to call them out and make things very difficult and uncomfortable for them. If they refuse to engage in a conversation, call them out and say, this arrogant guy doesn't want to engage in a conversation. I have done A, B, C, and D, and these are the types of names I've been called, or whatever the specifics happen to be. But call them out on, this person is only interested in talking to you if it's election time, and find ways to start calling them out and make it uncomfortable for them. They want to be liked, and which doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why you would get into politics if you but
Well,
I
you get into politics, you want to be liked so people vote for you. That's why. Other than that, I
guess, but they don't like being called out. They don't like people that dislike them talking about them.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's
They're politicians.
especially in a public forum.
Well, they're politicians. They don't want to be called out. They want to go out and spew their whatever they're and look, it's like a used car salesman. They want to spew whatever they're going to spew, and they want you to vote for them, and they want you to believe it. And anybody that disagrees, they're going to remove this guy. Yeah.
So making it really uncomfortable for them. But yeah, that's about the best I can say without talking specifics about ones. I mean, I've done this on a few senators, but everyone is unique in the circumstances. But that's at a high level. That's really all I can say.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Mad Sexy, and I'm not going to publicly dox anybody, but get in touch with me. Send me an email or hit me on Facebook, and then I will get you in contact with Rod if you would like to speak with him more. I'm not going to throw Rod's contact info out there for everybody right now, but I can put you in contact with Rod, and so that way, if you want to give him the specifics sometime and have a phone call, something like that, then you two can work that out yourselves. So we'll do that. So a couple calls to action before we wrap this up. First and foremost, if you're not seeing, whether it's school board, city council, or county commissioner, whatever it is, state legislature, even federal level, if you're not seeing a candidate from your district that I guess holds up to your standards, then maybe you should think about providing the world with that candidate, and nobody's going to adhere to your standards better than you do. So, everybody that is in Congress grew up as a normal person, or normal, for their life. That's relative, I know. But every person in Capitol Hill got there by deciding one day that they wanted to run, and deciding that they wanted to get elected, and having that goal and making it happen. There's nobody on the Capitol Hill that is superhuman. They all got elected the same way through the same processes. you can do the same thing. Now, maybe some of them, are better equipped to spend the money for a campaign, and in certain districts it may cost more than others. And of course, at the federal level, it costs more to campaign than it does for city council. But the point is that if that's what you need to do, then start telling people now. Start talking about it and get your ideas out there and see if you get backers. And if it happens to snowball for you and all of a sudden somebody's like, yeah, I would like to see you get elected, I will talk to some people, and they'll talk to some people, and pretty soon we'll have enough money in the hat to get this done. Then all of a sudden you've got backers, you've got constituents, you've got the means now to get yourself elected and do the good that you wish somebody would do. Some of you, and not all of you, obviously are prepared or equipped or in a position to do that right now, or even down the road. But somebody out there needs to be that somebody. One of you needs to be the somebody that you're looking for. So there's one call to action. The other call to action that I want to put out there right now is everything that we've talked about can be implemented this Sunday for the online 2A rally. There's no given time. Sunday, that's the specific time. You've got 24 hours on Sunday where you live to reach out to your people that you need to reach out to. You've got until then to work on an email. If you want to compose the most epic letter, then start composing it. Do it on a computer where you can copy and paste it and send it out to multiple representatives. Like Rod said, it might not just be the people that represent your district. It can be the people that are on a given committee, or the people who represent districts in which you have an interest. You can even send one out to everybody in your town, in your county, in your state, every elected official that represents your state in Congress even. But it's not that hard to make a few phone calls and send a few emails. And I tell you what, I've been told this since I was a kid in grade school, and I've never forgotten this. And I think in this day and age, it even holds more true. If you write out a letter, even if you type and print a letter and hand sign it, if you send a hand addressed envelope, you take it, you stamp it, you mail it, and it goes to them and it's addressed by hand, they note that has some weight too, because that instantly lets them know you cared enough to do this the hard way. You didn't cut any corners. If you've got nice handwriting, you can handwrite the letter. If you write like I do, I would suggest typing it. But if you sign that and you put it in the mail and it goes through the postal service to them, that means something to them too. Whatever it is that you want to do, then go ahead and make that happen. Of course, there's no mail on Sunday. It's going to have a Saturday or a Monday postmark, but you can date your letter for Sunday. You can do whatever it takes. And again, you don't have to put out any effort to do this. You don't even have to get out of bed to do this. So there's no excuse. There's 24 hours in the day. You can take a couple of those minutes and make a letter and send it off. Make a phone call. Do whatever you need to do. Just do it. And go back and review everything that we had said earlier if you want to. Be respectful. Don't call people names. Don't make threats of any kind other than, if you're not willing to do what I want you to do as my representative, I'll find somebody that will. That's not an empty threat. That means that you're a serious voter and they listen to you, because again, we need to remind them that they work for us, not the other way around. Sometimes a gentle reminder is all it takes. Other times it takes a little bit more of a reminder to just say, hey, if you're not going to do this, you're not going to get my vote. Simple as that. But again, there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything. There's a right way and a wrong way to say the things that you want to say. So maybe reread them, proofread them. If you can get somebody else to look over it, ask them if it makes sense, and then take somebody that doesn't know what you were going to write. If they read it and then you ask them what that letter says, if they say exactly what you meant it to say, then you wrote it right. And if they think it means something completely different than what you intended, then maybe you should go back and edit that a little bit and maybe get some help editing it so that it does say exactly what you intended instead of, what somebody else interpreted it as. So
Well, hey,
proofread it has a reading comprehension problem.
What's that?
Or maybe the person you had read it has a reading comprehension.
Oh, there is that possibility too, but we can't rule out that the person that it's addressed to may also have that problem.
They might have seen a squirrel.
Yeah, you never know. So just like I said, it doesn't take that long to do this. The whole point of this is reach out, speak out, because there are 100 million of us. And if you're listening to my voice right now, then I know you are electronically inclined. And if you can listen to this live broadcast, or you can listen to this later on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever it shows up, if you can hear this, then you can probably send out an email or make a letter or whatever it is, make a phone call that you need to do. In fact, I believe I still have that copied in here. I will repost the phone number for the Capitol Hill switchboard. 202-224-3121 is the phone number for the Capitol Hill switchboard. Kingpin called that a little while ago when we first started, and then he did tell me in the side chat that it is on 24/7. So it doesn't matter when you hear this. It doesn't matter what day it is, what time of day it is. You can call 202-224-3121 and get the Capitol Hill switchboard, and they will forward you to the right voicemail for your elected representatives. And you can call in at least 3 times, if not more, depending on how many representatives your state has. You may be able to do, call all of them. Like Rod said, I've got, I live in one district here in Nebraska. I've got, where I came from. I have a vested interest where the ranch is. That's a different district. Same thing for state legislature. So I've got more than one person I need to reach out to on Sunday, and I will. I've got a couple days to get my stuff prepared there too, and get my ducks in a row. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's not that hard. If it was rocket surgery, I wouldn't be able to accomplish it. So there is my call to action for all of you, and then the elected part or running for office, my call to action for some of you possibly. So all right, we had Travis in here and he had to get going. We had Kingpin and he also had to get going. So we will just thank those two for joining us on our panel, and we will let everybody else kind of sign off a little bit and say goodnight. So Squib, we haven't picked on you a whole lot. We'll give you a chance to say anything you want to say before you say goodnight.
Bye.
All right. Double A, we know you're a man of few words, but can you put together a couple words to say goodnight?
A man of few words. I talk too much. Squib, crack me up. Bye. Rod, thank you. I came in a little late. I knew what was going on, and it was like, let Rod talk. I wanted to chime in and ask John Sandhill. He knows I like to chime in, and I wish I would have been writing notes because there was so much I wanted to say. And dude, I loved everything you said. I wanted to go, oh, what do you think about this? And it was like within 3 words, you answered what I mean? So it's all good. Thank you, Rod. Let's all keep up the 2A fight. What else can we do? I talking and commenting. How do we change people's minds? It's the win the hearts and minds, but when you come to the people that are so anti, how do you can't. So for us, what's left? Well, it's like we were all talking. You got to call, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's a lot of work. Do you want your freedom saved? Get off your butt.
Exactly.
Thanks, John. Peace. Thanks for having me in.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. And real quick before I bring Rod in here, Patriot made a great comment, and I know this was part of your video that you had dropped earlier today, Patriot. get your teenagers involved. If they want to use the car, or if they want to go do this or do that, whatever it is, use what they want to do to get something out of them, especially if you've got teenagers who are of legal voting age still at home, or maybe they're not at home, but you've got kids that are, legal voting age. This is for everybody, but especially the people who have a vote. But there's no reason not to expose your kids to some of this, at least to a certain extent. There's no reason not to have your 15 and 16-year-olds learn how to reach out to their elected officials at this point. The fact that they can make that phone call themselves and speak well, that's going to serve them in all aspects of life as they learn and mature. So get those teenagers involved too. That was a great point that you made, Patriot. I liked hearing that. All right, so one more time, we've got Rod with us, and he did have a great presentation, and that was basically the same thing that he had told the NFOA members at the annual meeting. Each one of us is the gun lobby. It's not just the NRA, the GOA, or NFOA. It's not just any of those organizations. It's you, it's me, it's all of us. We all can do this. We just need to get a little practice at it, right? Everything gets easier the more you do it. Build the relationship. Don't just make it a one and done. Reach out to those elected officials often. Let them know that you're paying attention. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Let them know that you're praying for them if you're the type of person that prays. I know a lot of you are. I don't think that you could tell at least a religious elected official something that would mean more to them than, hey, I support you, I'm praying for you. Here's, start with that, and then say, I've got my concerns, here they are. They're going to listen. If they first off read that there's some support and some love there, even if you don't agree with the things that they do, but you're still praying for them, especially if you don't agree with the things that you do, that's got a lot of weight for a lot of them. I know it does for me when people tell me they're praying for me. I don't even know how to take that, but I feel loved and supported just hearing that from people. So we do want to convey that as well. And if you don't pray, don't say that you do. I mean, be honest, but if you do, that's not a bad thing to tell them. So, all right. Rod, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I was happy to join. Hopefully it was of value. I appreciate some of the positive feedback. Hopefully everybody got something out of it and was worthwhile, and I didn't ramble on too much.
No, heck no. I enjoyed every bit of it. I'm going to go back, and I generally don't listen to these again, but I'm definitely going to go back and re-listen a time or two just to try and soak all that into my brain as much as I can anyway. And out there in the chat, I do want to mention Single Shot. He says he's got the Capitol Hill number on speed dial, and he's about worn that number out. So power to you. And thanks for doing that, Single Shot. Hopefully more of us can follow the example there. So we've got the list. Thanks to my beautiful bride, and she lets me know who's out there talking in the chat. So again, that's why I keep saying, if you are out there listening to the live chat, drop a comment so we know you're there. So at this point, we can say hi and thank you for being here. So out there in the chat, we had Kingpin doing double duty, Patriot in the Dark, Mystic Guns, Jay Brown, Mike, Travis T, the Pope Joy. I don't remember seeing the Pope Joy. That's cool. 10X Shooters, Ashley at Gunstreamer. I didn't see you either. Thanks for joining us, Ashley. Blue Steel 44, Kinky Sphincter, Dangerous Freedom, Garrett Crocked out there, Boob Sweat, Double A doing double duty, Mad Sexy, Ozzy Osbourne, Blitz. Thank you again for that super chat. We appreciate it. Anybody that wants to keep supporting us, and we don't know how long the channels will last now on the new YouTube rules. But anybody that wants to support us can go to Patreon and do that. And all of the videos that get posted here also get posted to Gunstreamer. So go check that out as well. And if you don't have a Gunstreamer, membership. It's free. You can subscribe to all the usual suspects there too. And the videos aren't gone, even if we disappear from YouTube. And the B channel is ready to go. If we need to use it, then we will get that word out. But there's nothing on it yet. 9mm, Seven Wonders, Hill Climb Ohio JB, William Keller, General Relativity, Ghost Tactical, New York Outcast, Joe Smith, Single Shot, and the Poor Conservative. So all of you, thank you very much. We can't do this chat. Put that there. We can't do this chat without you, without all of you watching, commenting, making this happen. It's just a couple of people sitting in a room just talking to ourselves, and that's not nearly as fun as when we get the interaction. So we appreciate all of you. We love you very much, and make sure that you reach out to your representatives on Sunday. I can't say that enough. Sunday, the 15th of December, the online 2A rally. Let everybody know. Tell everybody. If you know people that own guns, let them know that they need to do this. If you know people like my dad who don't get online, let somebody know or help them out. I'm not close to my dad, so I can't help him write an email, but I'm actually going to see him that day, hopefully, if the weather holds. So we will see what we can get done on his behalf as well. So if you know gun owners that aren't electronically inclined, help them out. Let's get all of our voices heard on that day. You know, we can get a couple thousand people to show up in Washington on the west lawn of the Capitol for a rally in person. And those people are super committed and had the time, or took the time and spent the money to get there. Whether they had it or not, they made it happen. Time and money aren't going to be a big issue for the online rally because we don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to leave your bed or the couch or whatever you're doing. Just do it. Maybe like we said, maybe be respectful and on all the things that we said, but just do it. Reach out, make your voice heard. That's the biggest thing. So on behalf of everybody on the panel, and on behalf of my hot date for life, Sandhills sweetheart, she does the typing, I do the talking. This has been the Get Off My Lawn podcast, episode number 10. You are the gun lobby. So don't forget it. You are the most important person in the great scheme of things. We're all a cog in this big machine, and the more of us the more of us that squeal, the more of us get that grease, right? So keep that in mind. With that said,
John, yep. I want to drop one thing. What you were saying, we are the people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. The gun lobby is we the people.
We the people.
We the people are the gun lobby. Yes, we are. We the people are whatever lobby we need to be at the time. But in this case, we are the gun lobby. So again, Rod, thank you very much for everything that you brought to the chat tonight. I think it's been a great one. It's been one of my favorites to do so far. So hopefully everybody else felt the same way. With that, we'll say this one last time. Get off my lawn.